In the words of Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, even during COVID-19, art has the ability to bring us close together. So during this pandemic, artists across the continent have been tapping into their creative hubs to tell stories of hope. And a new company in Zimbabwe is rolling out its way into the global cigar market. So, bonjour, Absheni, and welcome. I am Tumelo, and this is #Africa. Well, we made a COVID-conscious visit to the Guns N' Rain gallery, and I'm seated next to Sandile Radebe to tell me more about his work. Sandile, thank you for your time and welcome.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Tell me a bit more about the work that you do in your art.
My work is about language and writing systems and how those things formulate our perception of the world and our perception of ourselves. So I interrogate different writing systems, ranging from graffiti to Zulu material culture that communicate messages like ingamba, mapekwe, as a way of formulating a sense of ourselves in relation to the spaces that we live in.
And why particularly that style of art?
Because Zulu,
yeah.
and I was raised in Joburg, so in my work I always merge a sense of urbanity and how my Zuluness manifests within this urban context. Where there's a fusion of many other languages. So I focus on Istamto, which is a fusion of Guita, Kintu, English and Afrikaans, and also Zulu material culture. I interrogate that and what it means and how it works.
It's interesting you don't talk about Joburg Zulu, because I know that there's certain Zulu, there are ranges to the Zulu. There's the KwaZulu-Natal Zulu, which is pure and very indigenous in its origins, and then there's the Joburg Zulu, which you mix with other language. There's a bit of colloquialism there.
Also, even Zulu itself is kind of broad, because if you go to Emanzimtoti, you get Amazula Sentanti, you know? And then Zulu Paka, then you have Zulu Paka. So language always changes and morphs over time. So there's Zulu as well is broad.
That's interesting. And then your recent work, then take me through your recent work.
My recent work is exploring Amapeka, which you find in Matanti, ingamba, and which is beadwork that is used for decoration, and I just use that to signify my Zuluness, number one, and also marry that with a constructivist aesthetic to give an entry point to a person who usually visits gallery which have a Eurocentric tradition, so that they can have an entry point to my identity as Zulu. Then I look at this like, how does it formulate our sense of self? And the meaning behind it, and the multiplicity in the meaning, because we use a triangle to signify a lot of ideas. And similarly in Joburg, there's multiplicity in the way that we speak and engage with each other. In a nutshell, that's what my recent work is about.
How important is identity in your work? Because as a Mopedi woman, I still feel like I can relate to the themes and the narrative that you're trying to drive around knowing thyself and being comfortable in thy space and not being intimidated with spaces that were previously more Eurocentric, but finding myself even in an art gallery and saying, I can relate as a Mopedi woman in the message that you're trying to portray.
So identity is important because it gives you a sense of grounding within the space. You can get into your Eurocentric space, and then you see a work that speaks to your Africanness, and then you feel like, okay, maybe I am supposed to be in this space. I suppose that's our duty as African or Black artists, to interrogate that notion and also engage ourselves, our identity within this practice that we find ourselves in.
And the COVID-19 pandemic, how has that sort of affected the work that you do?
Positively and negatively, in the sense that there's challenges. I work in public spaces, so now no more painting the streets. But at the same time, it's given me an opportunity to stay at home, focus on what I do and produce a little bit more. So I've gotten a chance to recalibrate and work out and really think through about why I'm doing this, what's the best way to go about it, and also catch up on a lot of readings that I'm supposed to do that I don't always have the time to do. So it's been good and bad.
And you were just telling me also about how virtually it's made artists think about how to virtually incorporate, digital, rather the digital space and technology into their work. Now, even if I can't come physically to your art gallery, I can access your work online.
Yeah, absolutely. It's made. The internet always democratizes things, so it's like the focus onto online exhibitions, online talks,
right,
makes a bigger number of people. It gives them an opportunity to engage with the works. Like you don't have to physically get into your car, drive to a certain place. You can just log online. So it's made the work more accessible, but it's also different in the sense that you don't get to physically engage with the work.
Right, indeed. And I appreciate your optimism in this time that we're in, to say keep going, keep pushing. There are opportunities in the time that we're in. So Sandile, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right then. Well, of course, that's Sandile Radebe right here at the Guns and Rain Gallery. But you know what, speaking of art and fashion, we head over now to Congo, where a designer's art actually streamed for tens and thousands of people, went viral. And let's find out why.
Invisible models strutting down a digital catwalk. This is not your traditional fashion show. But when a world in lockdown meant that US-based Congolese designer Anifa Mvuemba's debut was cancelled at this year's New York Fashion Week, she decided to get creative.
The entire world is home, on their phones. This is like the best time to do this.
Last month, she held a virtual show for her latest collection, Pink Label Congo, watched by tens of thousands of people via the Instagram page of her fashion line, Hanifa.
Honestly, we knew it was going to be something cool, but we didn't know it was going to blow up the way that it did. We were not prepared for this at all.
Mvuemba, who says her collection is inspired by the clothes worn in her native country, was already working with 3D animation to design her pieces and do remote photo shoots. But she says the virtual show required more work in a narrow time frame.
We had to make sure that it matched the realistic garment. We had a really hard time making sure a dress flowed naturally and how it would flow if a curvy woman was wearing it.
Mvuemba said she also wanted to raise awareness of child labor within the DRC's coltan mining industry, and a mini documentary was aired at the start of the show. She plans to work in the same format again, but also wants to see her designs showcased on a physical runway, saying she still loves working with real models.
While you are enjoying the virtual fashion online, you can also enjoy a Mushiwa Tunya cigar. And this is a cigar by a newly established Zimbabwean company that is rolling its way into the global cigar market while developing a culture of cigar smoking at home.
When entrepreneur Shep Mafundikwa set up Zimbabwe's first hand-rolled cigar business, he named it after the world-famous Victoria Falls. The local name, Mushiwa Tunya, meaning the smoke that thunders. For Mafundikwa, who returned to Zimbabwe in 2019 after 15 years in the United States, it's a signal of intent to take on the big names of the well-established export market.
We have solid interest right now from Romania and from Vietnam, and we've got inquiries from Dubai. So for me and the team, we want our brand on the international market as soon as possible.
As well as being famed for its economic troubles, annual inflation hit over 785% in May, Zimbabwe's tobacco is also renowned. It's exported mainly to China and Europe, where it's used as flavouring by global cigarette makers. For Mafundikwa, that was the starting point.
I thought there was something unique that could be done here, and that's how the idea and the dream was born.
He recruited Elias Lopez, who's worked for cigar makers Arturo Fuente and Davidoff to train an all-woman team in the art of rolling cigars by hand. The 52-year-old from the Dominican Republic claims these cigars will compete with the best in the world, such as Habanos and Monte Cristo from Cuba. But for the time being, the competition is a little closer to home. Bongani Cigars, launched last year in another southern African nation, Mozambique, is also seeking to crack the luxury cigar market. As well as export, Mafundikwa wants to develop a cigar market locally by making affordable brands. In Harare, where Mosio Atunya is based, Royan Dudzo is sharing some of the cigars with friends over bottles of wine.
Traditionally, I'm just a cigarette smoker. I decided to take this on a trial basis, and I'm surprisingly enjoying it. It is this flavor within it that I don't get from my normal cigarettes.
So in Zimbabwe at least, it seems the smoke that thunders has gone down a storm.
And still to come right here on #Africa, a new gaming app is combining learning and fun for students in lockdown. And now in Nigeria, Quizak, a new gaming app, is putting fun in learning for Nigerian students who have been in lockdown amid school closures, this caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
With exams approaching, Bridget Onmata is playing on her phone. But her mother doesn't need to worry.
I'm studying English.
Amid school closures, the 17-year-old, like thousands of other Nigerian students, has recently signed up for Quizak, an app that wants to show that learning is fun.
At first, when I tried the app, I did not get anything. So I was the last on the leaderboard. So I felt like for people that are writing the same exams to be at the top, so I need to do something to get to that point.
Aimed at secondary school students, the app features quizzes and allows students to compete with each other. Growing Up co-founder and chief executive Tade Sampson says he struggled to learn, but was inspired to create the app after seeing a TV program about gamification.
Learning is not an affliction, and it shouldn't be an affliction. It should be fun.
Quizak uses digital tickets, bought for between 1,000 and 3,000 naira or $3 to $9 that last from a month up to a year. The company says it now has more than 9,000 users, many of whom joined in the last 3 months. Co-founder and lead developer Oluwatobiloba Awobemi says the app wasn't built for a world under lockdown.
But more or less we were prepared when this time actually came, and that's really gave us much more attention.
The developers say they consulted teachers from across Nigeria and are working on providing more features. That includes a recently launched tool for schools that allows teachers to create subject-specific games, meaning though students may be cut off from the classroom, they won't get left behind.
Now, most students are back to learning, and the latter is not the same for Burkina Faso teens, as manual labor is becoming the new norm since coronavirus pandemic forced the closure of schools.
Breaking stones and hammering granite, working on a quarry is intense manual labour, especially for a teenager. Elise Yonogo started working at the quarry in the Burkina Faso capital Ouagadougou with his mother after authorities ordered schools closed back in March.
Working in the quarry is very hard. If you work here, you hurt all over at me. But I'm helping my mother to support our family. It's my duty to work.
Yonogo can legally work at the site as he is over 16. But despite the law, nearly half of all Burkinabe children between the ages of 5 and 14 engage in some form of manual labour, according to a 2018 report by the US Bureau of International Labour Affairs. Aminata Zundi said she had no option but to bring her 10-year-old daughter Zenabo to the quarry, meaning she has to find her food and make sure she doesn't injure herself with rocks. For workers with children aged between 3 and 6, however, there's a nursery. It was opened in 2005 by a local group that helps children and young workers and is run by teacher Abdul Kabre. He started working in the quarry when he was just 12 years old. He says at the beginning it was difficult to convince mothers to leave their children at the nursery, but now, even on holidays, they want the centre to be open.
John Njenga, a school bus driver, found himself out of work when learning institutions in Kenya were closed 3 months ago to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Well, he now carries 200-litre water drums on his back to hand washing stations around Nairobi to help people stay sanitized.
When Kenyan students were sent home around 3 months ago, school bus driver John Njenga found himself out of a job. Rather than do nothing, he offered his time, efforts and money to help people stay sanitized. Every morning he carries 3 200-litre water drums, one at a time, on his back to busy bus park areas and refills them with water throughout the day.
I decided to go and buy water tanks, the ones you see here, and then bought 5 water cans and a wheelbarrow. That was all I could afford. And I went to Nairobi town and started supplying water for people. I put these tanks in the streets and I have been supplying people with water every day.
Nairobi's water infrastructure was already creaking before the government ordered people to stay put and keep clean. At the best of times, Nairobi Water and Sewage Company can only supply 526,000 cubic metres out of a daily demand for 810,000, according to the utilities acting head. And that's why Njenga's efforts have won him a lot of fans. Bus park operator Joseph Kiai says they see a lot of human traffic, but now not only passengers but also passers-by are washing their hands. But for Njenga, he wishes he could be back doing his old job, saying the lockdown pains him dearly because of how much the kids had loved going to school.
And still to come, Ivorian artists are spreading positivity in a new emoji. Find out how. This is #Africa. Let's now take a quick look at news making headlines across the African continent. Sensei Uche is feeling the pinch as nightlife in Nigeria is on a standstill. This is due to the lockdown.
Sensei Uche has earned a living for the last 3 years as a hype man. He's often found on stage at a bar on the Lagos nightclub scene, getting the audience riled up for a DJ. But when Nigeria's lockdown kicked in, Sensei lost his main source of income. He's now moved to hosting so-called isolation parties online, where he performs to around 1,000 people watching through Instagram. But while the main online parties have kept his brand alive, he's not able to monetize them.
It's been weird, because for me and for everyone that's in the line of business, that I am in also, our lives were turned upside down, like literally just turned upside down on its head. Now we have to start thinking if this would become our reality, if the partial reopening would become what we'll have to be dealing with every weekend.
Bar owners who hire out Sensei have also felt the pain from closing venues.
Hi, it's a Friday night in Lagos. My name is Rotimi. You're welcome to Pablo Cubana.
Rotimi Kuti works for Cubana Group, a network of clubs in Nigerian cities. The club in Lagos usually hosts around 700 people on Friday nights. But since March, they only make money from food deliveries.
Lagos is not complete, that's nightlife, and it's even much bigger than just Cubana Group. A whole lot of other businesses that complement and, contribute to the GDP of the state, through events and nightlife and concerts and the rest of it. So I think the state is bleeding money, the business are bleeding money, so everybody will come to a compromise as to how to help, make sure we don't keep people unemployed.
On a drive through Lagos' empty streets, Sensei makes his feelings clear.
If you don't find this vaccine in time, this business is going to suffer. It really is. People are already suffering. So yeah, that's my biggest fear. I just hope that we can find the vaccine in time so that we don't make this the new normal.
The Lagos going out scene, as with so many industries, may rely on a medical breakthrough to come to the rescue.
An Ivorian artist has partnered with Twitter and UN Refugee Agency to create a special emoji to mark this year's World Refugee Day. Now, the emoji, which has two hands linked together, is spreading a positive message.
A 22-year-old Ivorian artist gained recognition in 2019 after creating 365 emojis, one for each day of the year, inspired by African culture. This year, Herbert Oplerou created one emoji to celebrate World Refugee Day.
J'espère qu'avec cet emoji, je vais arriver à inspirer les gens à s'accepter malgré leurs différences et avancer ensemble.
The emoji, with two hands linked together in a shape of a heart, celebrates courage and resilience of millions of people forced to flee their homes due to war or persecution. The young designer says he wanted to come up with an emoji that shows diversity and solidarity.
Pour faire l'emoji, je me suis basé sur trois valeurs du HCR, la diversité, l'acceptation et la solidarité. Et pour pouvoir représenter ça, j'ai pensé à utiliser deux mains de couleurs différentes qui formaient une action. Et l'action que j'ai choisie, c'était de former un cœur comme ça.
The emoji, available on social media platforms with the World Refugee Day hashtag, aims to bring attention to the plight of refugees and displaced people.
Travailler avec le HCR sur ce projet m'a permis de mieux m'informer sur les notions de réfugiés et déplacés, de me rendre compte qu'il y en a dans mon entourage et de me sentir plus concerné par le sujet.
Herbert plans to recreate his emojis in 3D and wants to travel to other African countries to discover cultures and create emojis for them. The 22-year-old was named in Forbes' Africa 30 Under 30 list of young men and women forging the continent's future with creative and innovative ideas in the field of business, art, technology, and sports.
And that's it from me, Tumelo Mututwani. Remember to keep the conversation going online on Twitter. We are at Africa_ENCA. But we leave you with these beautiful pictures from across the beautiful continent of Africa. And until next time, it's goodbye.
Thank you.